Yeah, no, happy to be here. Hi, everyone. My name is Doug Yearwood, as you can probably see on the screen. I'm Vice President, Community Relations for your union, PSAC Local 901. So I'm guessing for many of you, you're not familiar with exactly what our union does or how we came about. There's lots of information I can share and chat with you about later. There's also, and I'll put this in the chat just for everyone to view on their own time. There's a wonderful short history that was given by a former Queen's graduate student and former head of our PSAC Local 901 union about the history of unionizing and sort of how PSAC 901 came to be. So that's a resource that I would definitely like to share with you and encourage you to review and look at it at your own time. But today, basically, I'm going to give you a short, about 30-minute long presentation or so about, what PSAC 901 is, what we do, how we need you to get involved to make sure that our union is vibrant and strong. And to do that, I have a fancy little PowerPoint presentation that I'll share with you right now. So I'm just going to share the screen and we'll be underway. So I'm assuming that everyone can see this. If not, please let me know.
Looks good.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we'll get to this in a second, but I'm one of about 10 people that's on the executive of the union. So I've been at Queen's as a graduate student worker since 2016. I'm entering my 5th year now as a PhD student, so I've been around for some time, and I've been really involved in the union for about the last 3 or 4 years, where I've served as community relations, the Vice President, Community Relations. And I'll introduce you to some of our exec in a bit. We have photos and stuff that maybe can help you get acquainted, and you'll learn about the different positions in our executive and exactly what we do. But that'll come in a couple of minutes. So, said simply and plainly, you all know that when you come to Queen's, there's a myriad, there's a few ways that you're getting funding and money basically to help you survive your 4 or 5 years, or if you're a master's student, 1 or 2 years at the school. This can consist of grant awards, supervisor contributions, departmental contributions, and for most of us, it includes employment. So, I think a lot of people come to Queen's and, or just any graduate, like anyone who's a graduate student will go to whatever university they're at and they say, oh, I'm a graduate student. And they don't really always make the link between, where we sit in the university system, where we occupy this curious role, both as students and as workers. And we're here today, or I'm here today to chat with you a little bit about the worker side of things, but there's a lot of interrelationships there that are fun to explore and discuss. We create value both as students and as workers. But what we aim to do on the worker side of the relation is to ensure that your contract is upheld, that you have safe working conditions, that you're paid at the standard $42.73 per hour. You have sick leave, some contract security, some mandatory training, and those sorts of things. And these have been hard-fought battles that didn't come easily. As Doug Nesbitt explains in the YouTube video that I've shared on the history of unionizing at Queen's, things weren't always like this. So for those of you who are new walking into Queen's, you might think, oh, this is just the way things are. They've always been. No, I mean, this has been the result of us as student workers organizing, taking power into our own hands and demanding that we get these important things, a little bit of security economically, mentally, hopefully coming up. With our bargaining and whatnot, paid mandatory training to ensure that we're all capable of fulfilling the work that we've been assigned to, and these sorts of things. So, in general, this is what we do. You can see it in front of you. If we're talking about graduate student employment, we're talking about TA-ships, so teaching assistantships, research assistantships, teaching fellowships. And there's also postdoc fellows who are here, but they're not part of our bargaining unit. And for the sake of keeping things simple today, we'll just focus on TAs, RAs, and TFs. So in this presentation today, I'll give you, some of the 901 basics, what you need to know. I'll tell you a little bit about our union structure. You'll there be introduced to some of our executives. You'll learn a bit about our Stewards Council, what stewards do, and then I'll have the chance to inform you about different active committees and working groups, just different ways that you can get involved if that's something you think you're interested in. We'll sort of conclude with upcoming events and resources and a brief discussion, nothing too long or onerous about contract negotiations as we are in a bargaining year. So as I've mentioned, we're unionized workers under Public Service Alliance of Canada. We are Local 901. And as I've said, we have two units. Unit 1 is made up of us TAs, RAs, and TFs with a bulk of membership, about 2,000 of us. And Unit 2 is comprised of postdoctoral scholars, and there's about 175 to 200 of them. So keep things simple. We'll focus today on Unit 1, which is where all of us sort of fit in. But each unit, whether you're a postdoc or whether you're a TA, RA, or TF, has their own collective agreement with the university that secures and guarantees our working rights. You can find this agreement. It's available on our website, psac901.org. And there's some pointers in there that sort of help guide you through the most pertinent, most important information. Definitely encourage you to read your collective agreement to know exactly what your rights are. This can be really important when you feel like there might be a workplace grievance that you'd like to file about, safety, whether this is having to do with proper ventilation this year with COVID and all these things, or if it's just something like you're running over your hours. What do I do? How do I resolve this? You're working overtime. So I definitely encourage people when they have time to read their collective agreement, and there's different ways that you can contact us if you have concerns or problems. You can get a hold of me, or ideally you reach out to the steward in your department or our co-chief stewards on the executive, and they'll help guide you through some of the ins and outs of the collective agreement and what to do formally and informally to resolve any issues that you might be having in the workplace. Okay, so there are benefits, not just being a unionized worker, but there's other things too. As a result of being a unionized worker, you have 9 hours of paid sick leave per contract. That's per 130 hours, which is the standard contract that many of us will be working under. Some of us get 65-hour contracts, but it's 9 hours paid sick leave per 130-hour contract. You're entitled to get overtime pay if you work for more than 8 hours a day, which is really important to know. There's been a couple times in the last 5 years or so where typically during exam season, people start feeling pressure from their employment supervisor to get their work in. And sometimes, it might require you working like a 10-hour day before you take off and go home for holidays. But if you know in advance that you're going to be working, this long, you can have a chat with your employment supervisor and say, listen, I don't think I can get this work done in 8 hours. It's going to take me about 10 hours. Do you authorize overtime pay? Is this something we can discuss? And hopefully their answer is yes. But if not, you are eligible if it is sort of mandated and required that you work overtime, which is longer than 8 hours a day, you are eligible for overtime pay. So that's important to know as well. Also, another thing is there's contract extensions for work over hours. So there's a great application that we have on our website. It's a time tracker app. I think it'll come up in the next slide or two. Yeah, it's right here. But if you just go to our website, psac901.org, there's an Excel time tracker that'll allow you to keep track week by week how many hours you're working. So this is super helpful. I mean, I think for a bunch of people, especially with the onset of COVID in March 2020, the shift to online learning meant that people were answering more emails. Grading was a little bit more onerous because you were no longer receiving sort of hard copies where you can go through and, check off, and comments become, this whole other thing. So if you're able to sort of track your hours week by week, it gives you a lot more leverage when you go to whoever your supervisor is and say, listen, I'm not dilly-dallying. I'm not sort of screwing around. Here's the hours that I've tracked week by week. you can see where I've had to put in extra time and I'm about to go over my scheduled contract. We need to do something to sort of resolve this situation. This can either lead to you seeing increased pay. If not, you're certainly eligible to contact your steward in your department or our co-chief stewards, and we're happy to sort of manage that situation. And of course, that can be stressful. I don't want to underplay that either. I know for myself, there's been a few times where I've sort of had to suck things up and decided, it was sort of best for my relationship, even if I was tippy-toeing over, if I was at 131, 132 hours rather than 130. Sometimes you don't want to rock the boat. I don't encourage that, by the way. It's sort of my former life. I sort of thought that way, but I think, we do have these rights. We should be able to have them respected and maintained. So if you are going to work over, it's always best to give a heads up that you're about to exceed that and not to sort of come to your supervisor after the fact, but definitely keep track of your hours, because it helps, give a more accurate portrayal of what's going on, and allows us to have a little leverage when we start speaking with the employer about ensuring that contract extensions are given for work over hours, or that you are stopping at that 130-hour mark and you're compensated adequately for the work that you put in. There's also an employment family assistance plan for mental health support. You can see this. This is at Queensview. I'll see if I can, I'll post these links after the presentation. How about that? But I definitely encourage you to check out some of that information that you have access to as a unionized worker in terms of benefits. So I've gone through this already. You can download the Smart app as well through the Apple App Store or the Android Google Play Store. So feel free to check that out when you get a moment. And I'm happy to link that after our presentation as well. So I've spent some time so far telling you a little bit about grievances, and maybe I've used this word without really giving you a good description or definition of what it means. But basically, grievances arise when employers don't follow our collective agreement, either at an individual or a systemic level. So typically what will happen when there are situations that arise, say you are working over 130 hours or you expect to, you may wish to start the grievance process, which would mean you go to your chief steward, or sorry, you go to your department steward or our chief stewards if you don't have a department steward, and you explain the situation. From there, we can either work with you to resolve things formally or informally. We typically prefer to go down the informal route, because once you start doing the formal grievances, it sort of becomes this legalistic matter. And that's stressful for both parties. So we like to resolve things informally when we can. Sometimes this is just a matter of having our co-chief steward sit down and message the department. It ranges really in what the approaches are rather. But so that's one type of grievance. Other would be sort of like a mass systemic level. So I'm not saying that this is going to happen, but I think it's feasible that there's, say, health and safety concerns about return to campus, for example. Not saying it's going to happen, but if there is a legitimate basis for people to sort of file collectively at a systemic level a grievance saying, hey, there's all these things that are wrong. Say we're not getting enough air changes per hour, or there's not good enough ventilation in the classrooms, or they're not doing enough cleaning, and this is not just one or two offices, but say an entire department or number of departments, then we're sort of getting into a systemic type grievance that's a little bit broader in scale, and likely, hopefully we can resolve it informally, but sometimes you need to bring in the big guns to help resolve these type things, and that's where our co-chief stewards and some of our representation as unionized workers and as a collective can sort of come into play. So, to say it plainly, I guess we can advocate for you legally and assist you in resolving problems informally in your work and contract to ensure that you're not being exploited or overly exploited such is the nature of being a grad student, but so that you're not overly exploited during your time here at Queen's University. So typically, yeah, unpaid trainings and work over contracted hours are the things that we file most often. But there's a range of things, and if you feel like your rights are being violated, please reach out, find out who your steward is in your department. If you do wonder and you're not sure who they are, you can contact me. That's vpc@psac901.org, or our co-chief stewards, and you'll see their emails in just a second. So this is our wonderful executive. I don't know if you've had the chance to meet anyone here, but we do have a really dynamic, great group, hard workers, people who have been elected. You know, we weren't bestowed with this position by the employer or by God or anything like that. We were elected by our membership. So Astrid is our new president, just got elected at our last annual general meeting. I'm returning as VP Community Relations. We have Rohit, who's also been around. He's the former president, who's decided to move into another role and is now the vice president for research assistance. Prerna is our equity officer, who does wonderful work with the Social Justice Committee, amongst other things. Britt is our superstar info officer. So if you're receiving newsletters to your employee email address, they've likely been designed by Britt. So she does a lot of hard work there. Ramji is our postdoc scholar representative, he's VP postdoc. Janan is one of two co-chief stewards. Harsha is the other. So if you do have any issues, please reach out to them. That's Chief Steward at psac901.org and Chief Steward 2 at psac901.org. So I'm seeing some comments, yeah, downloading the app. I can circle around to that at the end. So I apologize for that, but it's probably easiest. The only way I've ever done it is accessing it via the website. And that to me is easier, just having the Excel spreadsheet that I work on and update. It's really, really handy. You can just punch in week by week and it all adds up as an aggregate. So I definitely recommend using the Excel spreadsheet on our website. I'm not sure why it isn't working through the different app sites, but I can definitely check into that, and I will when I'm done the presentation. So apologies for giving you or for misleading you or having a faulty link or whatever. Katrina is our new health and safety officer, and it's obviously a really crucial year for us to ensure that we have a strong health and safety committee, and you know, I'm really reassured by having Katrina on board. She's been super active, and you'll see, you know, as we return to campus here, you'll see us on campus handing out pamphlets that sort of walk us through what our rights are, things to look out for, where to file complaints. So she's been really helpful in terms of stepping up and helping develop you know, informative sheets and brochures and stuff that you should see, you know, as we return next week, that'll inform you a little bit more about things to look for, what your office space should look like, you know, what to do if you feel like your work environment isn't safe and these sorts of things. So Katrina's been great. If you do have concerns, definitely reach out to her, health and safety at psac901.org. And Ethan is our treasurer. Lots of good things to say about Ethan, but the position of treasurer isn't the most exciting thing in the world. He does a great job though. He's great at managing our money. So there's lots of different ways that you can get involved, and I think, you know, certainly the most important that comes to mind is our Stewards Council. You know, I think if you want to sort of look around at different unions that are really strong, that continuously sort of are seeing improvements in their work conditions and their pay and their benefits, it all starts by having a really strong stewards network. So, you know, I suspect for many of you, you haven't worked in a union before. I've had the opportunity just, you know, in a past life when I was working in a warehouse, And, you know, having strong stewards and having, back in the warehouse, you think of them as sort of shop floor stewards. And it's really no different in an academic setting. These are people who are paying attention to um, the politics in your department. These are people who are concerned about, where the teaching environment is taking place. So, if you're in an old dungy building or an old dungy room in MacQuarie, you're concerned about the airflow. You're going to want to approach this much like a shop floor steward would in a warehouse environment, and point out all the different health and safety problems. So we are currently trying to rebuild our Stewards Council. I think that only about half of the departments on campus are currently accounted for. So if you're looking around, you're wondering, well, who's my steward? There's a 50% chance or so that right now it's no one. And if you want to get involved in the union, this is like the place to be. We really need a strong Stewards Council, especially as we're moving forward through bargaining, because this is going to be our primary network of conveying information to our members. Stewards are going to be more interconnected in their departments than an executive ever could be. So we really want to grow the Stewards Network and the Stewards Council. So, please, if you're interested in this, there is a $400 honorarium for your service over the course of the year. So that's great. There's about 4 meetings per term. So it's not too bad in terms of compensation, but it's mostly symbolic, right? An honorarium, just, thanking you for participating and having a duty to, help your members. But, then again, we don't make much as graduate student workers. So that $400 can help you buy some food and survive and whatever. So different reasons for people to get involved. Whatever the reason is, we really want to see you at our Stewards Council meetings. And all members, by the way, are welcome to attend. So, even if there is representation in a given department, say I'm in political studies, I already know that Josh is our steward, and I know Janin, who's our chief steward, are already present there. But even if I weren't on the executive, I'd be showing up to these meetings because I want to have a strong stewards network and know that this is sort of should be at least sort of the lifeline of the union. So please help us make it stronger, grow it. Nothing but good things can come if we have a strong union. So please get involved with the Stewards Council if you're able. So circling back to health and safety, I mentioned a minute ago what a great job Katrina's done so far. We also do have a joint health and safety committee. So we have representation on the university's joint health and safety committees. Every faculty has a committee of union reps and admins that meet regularly to discuss hazards and perform inspections. So you're able to apply to become part of the JHSC for the upcoming year. You're paid for your time. It's not too onerous, but you are paid at the normal TA rate, $42.73 an hour, and you get all the training that you'll need provided for you. So you don't need any prior experience. So if you do want to get involved, health and safety at PSAC901.org is the place that you go to. Just send Katrina a message and say, hey, Doug sent me, I'm interested in getting involved here. What do I got to do? How do I apply? What are the next steps? And she'll be more than happy to help you out. This is a new committee, our Affordable Housing Working Group. I'm sure many of you are moving to Kingston or are about to. And in searching over the summer, I bet you were pretty shocked at how expensive housing is. It's unbelievable, frankly. So this is something that I helped start along with a number of others. But the reason why this really got off the ground, at least from my perspective, is when I moved to Kingston in 2016. I think I had a funding package of around, I can't remember if it was 12 or 14,000, but obviously not that much. And a place that I thought was adequate for my needs, a small 1-bedroom apartment, pretty close to campus, would was costing me close to $1,000 a month. So I'm not a PhD in math, but you take 14,000 and subtract 12,000, $1,000 a month in rent, and you're kind of left with peanuts, right? And that's supposed to pay your bills, supposed to help you eat. It's just simply inadequate, and it's a big problem for our graduate student workers. We ran a survey at the end of last year. There's about a quarter of our membership who participated in it, and the results were pretty shocking. We found that something like 85% of our members, excuse me, are living in core housing need, meaning that they're living in accommodations that run well over 30% of your monthly income, which is considered to be affordable, or that they're living in dilapidated buildings that aren't being maintained. So, the vast majority of us are living in inadequate housing. The university has only got about room for about a third of our members to live in community housing. And even that's not really cheap. So we know, most people, if you're a PhD, you're not making much more than 20 grand a year, if that, and if you are, you're lucky. So basically, this group is founded on a material basis, right? The housing crisis is impacting the vast majority of our membership. And we figure, as a union, the only way that we can really improve this is by organizing. So yeah, Kingston is notoriously unaffordable. Rents are skyrocketing every year. And so our mandate that our members have agreed to is to organize around and serve the interests of graduate student workers who are struggling with finding affordable and adequate housing. I think it's a great space to be if it's something that you're interested in, if it's something that impacts you, or if it's something that bothers you. What we want to do is raise awareness on campus about our existence, provide some education, whether this is informing people of their rights as tenants. We know that about 90% of our members don't know what their rights as tenants are. We want to conduct some research. We'll be deciding in upcoming weeks and months what those research projects are. But off the top of my head, one thing that I am sort of curious in knowing is how much it would cost for us to either build a co-op style building, or to ideally, in my mind, get the employer to pay, because it's just something that is at a scale that seems really hard for us as a small collective of relatively poor student workers, for us to be able to have our needs met. So we need to decide in the coming weeks and months what we want to focus our research on this year, and we also want to participate in direct action. Do some mutual aid work to help address our membership's needs. So there's a tenant organizing group. There's a few groups in Kingston that do some tenant organizing. Cataraqui Union of Tenants is one of them. Mutual Aid Cataraqui is the other. There's others as well, don't get me wrong. But especially with Cataraqui Union of Tenants, who I'm involved with, it's a group that's trying to make demands concretely and say, we need more affordable rent geared to income housing. Well, that would be great for us. If our rents were capped at 30% of our monthly income, compared to the 70, 80, 90% that we're paying now, that would be a hell of an improvement, right? So, we want to build solidarity across movements. We want to increase awareness on campus about our existence and what we're hoping to do. So if this is something you're interested in, and I really hope you are, I encourage you to shoot me an email. That's vpc@psac901.org, and you can get details about upcoming meetings and actions. Our first meeting is coming up next Thursday at noon. I will provide the Zoom link at the end of this presentation, where you can register for it. But if you have questions or concerns, or want to get involved, or just want to shoot me a message, vpc@psac901.org. I would absolutely love to have you on board. We had a lot of fun last year. There's about 35 people who came through throughout the year, about 17, 18 regulars. Some of them have graduated and moved on. Others are going to be back, but I really want to grow this thing this year. So please, if this is something that you're interested in, come on by. We'd love to have you there. Another thing that is sort of under my portfolio is the Political Action Committee. This meets with less frequency than Affordable Housing Working Group or some of our other committees, but typically we try and show solidarity with workers who are either locked out or striking, but also, we may call for the Political Action Committee to meet if there's some kind of big event. So if there's, I don't need to sort of run you through the gamut. You can imagine the types of things that we might help struggle organize and struggle for. But our purview is to organize, facilitate, and participate in direct action against forms of social, political, economic, and ecological oppression. So if there's something that that's going on in town, or there's something that interests you that you think would be of interest to the Political Action Committee, and you want us to do some postering to bring members out, let them know that this is going on, just shoot me an email. We can set something up. VPC again at PSAC901.org. So there'll be a couple things that are called throughout the year. Be on the lookout for that. It'll likely show up in a newsletter from Britt, our info officer. Getting a hoarse throat here. Not in prime teaching game yet. By December, I'm going to have I won't need water for 50 minutes in a lecture. Okay, so the Social Justice Committee is also a really, really wonderful group that we have on campus. It's ran by Prerna, our equity officer. And prior to that, it was, before Rohit became our president, he was the equity officer. So Rohit's basically sort of our gadget guy. He's done almost everything in the union so far in the executive level. So they've done a great job over the last couple of years in rebuilding and building and continuing on the excellence that is our Social Justice Committee. So they do a lot that sort of would be in line with what the Political Action Committee is doing, but is more centered around equity and issues of social justice. Currently the big thing that Social Justice Committee is focusing on is creating an anti-racist workshop, a working group, which is focusing on creating this, what they call, we're doing orientation. They want to do disorientation, which is a guide for surviving, the horribly and inequitable racist workplace that this campus can sometimes unfortunately be, and the need for anti-racist interventions, education, that sort of thing. So it's a wonderful chance for you to get involved. If you want to get involved in the disorientation stuff, please send Prerna an email as soon as you can. Otherwise, just be on the lookout, because this is one of the most active groups that we have in our union. They're constantly doing amazing, really important work. So, get in touch with Prerna, equity@psac901.org, and you can get some details about upcoming meetings and actions and the strategic direction that they're headed in and all that sorts of fun stuff. Okay, so one last thing before we sort of turn to bargaining. And I really appreciate your patience so far. I'm going to try and wrap up in the next 5-10 minutes or so. But we do have some bursaries for our members. We do this, I sort of want to say symbolically, but I don't know if that's the right term, but we know that there's gaps, right, in between what we want for our members and what is currently provided. So one such thing is having to do with graduate student workers who happen to be parents. It can be really tough. I've gone through and mentioned a few times here how little money that we're making and how that can be, really difficult to deal with. Well, imagine you have a kid, and the kid's going to cost you a lot more than, a lot of other things. And currently the way things are with funding, and just the nature of being a graduate student worker is that you either go deeper into debt or have to make ends meet by doing other employment or whatever the case may be. And it might not be tenable. And it's awful to see someone who has a dream of becoming a PhD or a master's student have to drop out for whatever reason, but it happens. So, this is a gap that we like to point out. And one such thing is with our childcare bursary. So there's 3 different deadlines throughout the course of the year: September 15th, January 15th, and May 15th. And for each term, you may be able to receive up to $500. We know that this doesn't cover the entire cost of being a parent, but it's basically what we can afford to do, and we want to help our members as best we can. So if you are a parent or you know parents who are joining the workforce, PSA and our PSAC 901 members, please let them know about this, because we want to help as many people as we can. We also have a gender affirmation bursary on campus to support those who are in the process of transitioning. That's fairly new, and Prana has done a lot of great work to oversee and help implement that program. So if you know, these are basically our 2 big ones. And I think, you know, as I can sort of speak for myself, who has some experience on the union, you know, we're not, right now, this is sort of what we do. But if you want to get more involved in the union, if you want to suggest things for our upcoming AGM, we can talk about other bursaries as well. If you notice other gaps where, like, we had a hardship bursary during COVID, for example, where we recognize, you know, people running to shift to the totally online space may have some costs, or, you know, money was a big issue. People not able to sort of work over the summer, what have you, you know. So these are set in stone insofar as our membership agrees to them every year. And at the AGM, they'll approve the spending for this. But if you notice other things, one of the best things you can do is not sort of walk away, but get more involved and say, hey, there's other gaps here too. Maybe we could find money in our budget to help fund these sorts of things. But, you know, I guess this is just me saying, we do what we can. We're not able to sort of cover all the gaps that exist, because we're in a pretty tight situation. But, you know, feel free to get more involved with the union, to show up at our special general meetings, at our annual general meetings. And beforehand, we'll send out a call through our info officer. You'll get it as a newsletter, saying that we're going to be doing, I think it's the bursary committee who decides on the strategic direction of the next year. So if you receive an email and you think that there's something you've noticed over the last few months that would be really great if the union could, you know, provide support for, yeah, then please get involved. And I should say, you know, like, one thing that one of the purposes of these bursaries is not to continue this in perpetuity, because we hope eventually the employer will recognize that these are things that absolutely every single student needs to have covered. So we would love for there to be better childcare in our collective agreement, or for there to be gender affirmation funds available to all who need it, to make their, you know, time as a employee here more comfortable. So, you know, we sort of like to point out the shortcomings through these bursaries, and they are sort of a stopgap. I think they're pretty helpful. I mean, I'm proud of them, and think that, you know, there's other gaps that exist as well.
What is actually secreted over time in response to the inhibition of.
Yeah, so I think, you know, those are things that I would point out. Okay, so our unit, this is big. We're in bargaining. We need better mental health care. It's brutal out there. Not trying to sugarcoat it. I was chatting with one of our stewards yesterday, and, you know, it sort of struck me that, you know, our by the very nature of signing up to be a grad student and a grad student worker, you're sort of signing on to this individualist project. We go into our silos. Sometimes we don't chat. It can be really isolating, really alienating. We need healthcare. We need mental health care. We need easier access to accommodations. We want anti-racist training for our members to know how to deal with uncomfortable situations, as well as to sort of help educate themselves on, you know, just becoming more critical, conscious people. We want better housing. That's another one. So these are things that we're struggling for currently in bargaining, and hopefully we'll see some wins. But in order for us to be successful, we really need collective unity. We need some solidarity. We need you showing up at our events. We want to talk to you, have one-on-one conversations about how we can, get you looped in, how, what you're interested in, what you want us to struggle for, what we should all struggle for. So, there's a number of things that you can do in the process of bargaining. This is by no means sort of a passive situation where you just wait and see what's going on. We really want you to show up at our events. We want to have really important conversations with you to find out what your concerns are. And by doing that, we're sending a strong signal to the employer that we mean business, and we want, we demand better treatment. So here's a contact information form. I'll send this around. Again, there's going to be a few links that I link here at the end of our presentation. But I mean, even if you don't do anything between now and maybe the next time you see me, or the next few weeks from now, please fill out this contact form. We would love to be able to get a hold of you, to chat with you about your concerns. This will be a way for us to stay in touch. So we may reach out via email or give you a phone call to find out about what's going on. But please, if you walk out of here with one thing today, please let it be this, and fill out the form. That would be greatly appreciated. The other thing that I need to put on your radar, and this is exciting because, God, when was the last time I saw another living person that isn't my partner? Long time ago, pretty much. But I might actually, and we all have the chance to hang out and see each other on September 23rd. That's a Thursday at 5 p.m. We're having a big fall barbecue. So please come out. You'll have the chance to meet other members. This is going to be just across from the grad club. So you're able to pop in there, have a brew or whatever, pop back out, come hang out. We're hoping to have some games, some music. There's going to be some competitions for gift coupons. It's going to be a great time. So please come out September 23rd at 5 p.m. City Park, which is right on Berry Street. Yeah, and then that should be really, really exciting. This is our first big thing that we've been able to do since March of last year. And, who knows, with the variant, it might be the last thing that we can do for another 18 months. So this might be our only chance to hang out with one another. I'm just kidding, or hopefully I'm kidding. Hopefully that doesn't come to fruition. But, we really would love to see you. I would love to see you. I'd love to get to know our members a little bit better. I mean, I talked earlier, just a minute ago, about the nature of our work being very isolating and alienating. My God, has COVID compounded that, right? We're all working from home now. We don't even see each other in the office. So this is a great chance for us to get to know each other again. Please come out. You can check out our social media if you're interested in learning more, or you can shoot me an email, whatever. But yeah, please, it's going to be great. There's going to be some food for you, games. So it'll be good. I really hope that you show up. Yeah, and I guess this just about wraps it up, right? So as I've mentioned a few times, you're not a passive agent in all this. We really require you being active and activating yourself and getting involved to make life better for us, not just now, but in the future, so that, the future Doug Yearwoods of Queen's University don't need to show up and spend 90% of his monthly income on rent, and so that people have access to healthcare and mental health care that's constantly improving, because we keep going back to the employer, we keep getting stronger, and they're saying, well, we got to give them something. So we really want you to get involved. We are only going to be as strong as our weakest link, so to speak. So we really would encourage you to show up at our social justice committee meetings, political action, affordable housing working group, all of the things that I've pointed out today. Please, if there's anything here that piques your interest, just show up or shoot me an email. Maybe there's something else that we can start working on. Get a hold of your stewards. Like I mentioned, our rebuilding and having a strong stewards network is essential for the future of our union. yeah, you can apply to even be the steward of your department. So you can email or call us. All the information that you need is on our website, psac901.org. There's other opportunities there as well. So for instance, with the Affordable Housing Working Group, we're not just going to have a closed off thing where we decide to give a research contract to someone. We're actually going to post it on our website and field applicants, and we want to get the best work possible. So there's different opportunities that you'll see there from time to time. We encourage you to stay up to date. But also, most importantly, please look out through your work email for our 901 newsletter for upcoming meetings, events, workshops, bursaries, and bargaining updates.